So I'm here with Brett McPherson. Brett has a background in practice management and is consulting with a number of businesses around Victoria. Brett, what are some of the major challenges that the practices that you're working with are facing to do with chronic disease management?
I think the key things are primarily compliance. And I think then it's how you actually combine compliance with clinical care. Doctors are very good at providing clinical care, but being able to comply with the MBS requirements can sometimes be difficult, and that's where you'll find people like practice nurses become extremely useful in the process.
Yep. And that was one of the topics that actually came up quite a bit, was the lack of education around compliance. Are there any methods that you've been using with these practices to help educate them in those areas, or any recommendations for those practices that you've been using?
Look, I think mainly is to understand the requirements of the particular chronic disease items that you're using. And there are some key areas in there that you need to meet and ensure that you comply with. If you comply with those and you have a good process in place and you're consistent with that process, then it becomes a habit which you then start to do routinely.
Yeah, okay, great. And in terms of chronic disease management as a whole in a clinical setting, do you think it's something we're on top of, or are there areas you think that we're lacking in and could be improved?
Look, I think some practices handle it very well, and I think some practices don't handle it well at all. So I think there's great opportunities to have a more streamlined process that provides practices with consistency and allows practices to be confident in what they're doing. I think as well, some practices, by nature of their patient cohort, won't see a lot of chronic disease. CBD practices, for example, will probably have a lot of those 20 to 40-year-olds that don't have a lot of chronic disease.
Yeah, that's very true. And when you talk about streamlining the processes, I suppose there are a lot of digital technologies that are coming into the space, such as Inca, that are trying to achieve those outcomes. Taking a step right back to the start of your career, is this where you thought healthcare would be?
25 years ago, no. I mean,
what are some of the differences?
Oh, look, I think that these days it's far more patient involved. I think there's far more involvement with the patient. I think there's a lot more around the GP and the doctor not being, if you want to use it, the paramount, the pinnacle of healthcare. I think patients now do question. I think Dr. Google's had a lot to do with that.
Very true.
And I think just the way that IT is making, I think smart IT works really well and makes things easier and takes a lot of the repetitive processes and makes them streamlined, makes them easier to do.
Yeah, of course. And on that note, if you were to have your time again, aside from going down the GP practice manager path, what would be your dream career?
My dream career? I remember when I was at school I was going to be a jet fighter pilot.
Jet fighter pilot?
I was. But I failed a coordination test, so...
Oh, so you actually went for a test?
Yeah, I had the test, did all that, to go to the Air Force. And so I left that and took up radiography.
How did you make the connection between the two roles?
Well, funny story, basically what happened is my neighbour at the time, their cousin or something had got into the course, so they said, look, and back in those days it was one of the few courses that actually paid you to study.
Oh, wow.
So we were really rich students. I think we had something like $150 a week.
That's pretty good.
It was at that particular point in time.
There you go. Cool. Thank you very much for your time.